Hey guys, what's going on? All Hail King 9 back with another Call of Duty DFS video for another day of the Call of Duty League playoffs where we have yet again another two matchups for this Friday. So as I always do, I'm just going to go, matchup by matchup, kind of break it down, tell you guys my favorite players from those matchups, and then I'll build somewhat of a like optimal lineup, if you will, in this video. So, just to recap the day before, some weird things keep going on in this Call of Duty League that players are disconnecting and stuff. So a little unfortunate in the London series as it was cut short. Probably should have went the distance going 5 games, and some of those players would have gotten a little bit more points. But besides that point, I did have some exposure to the players from the other game as well, the New York Subliners game, so I was able to cash in some of my contests that I was entered. I hope that my video yesterday helped you guys out, and you guys were able to cash out as well. But without further ado, let's hop into Friday's matches. Alright, so the first matchup of the day for Friday is going to be the New York Subliners versus the Chicago Huntsmen. Now, this one is an interesting one here because these two teams actually faced up against each other not too long ago, playing against Chicago, and it did go 5 games, but New York was able to win that series. So I do think that things are going to be a little bit different this time. I think Huntsman has improved since then, and I also didn't think New York looked as dominant as they had been, at the end of the regular season on Thursday when they played the Minnesota Rocker. I didn't think New York looked as dominant as they had in the past. They still won the series. I think that it probably should have gone 5 games. They barely won the hard point in map 4. So, I think New York didn't look as good as I thought they were going to look, but they still had some pretty good individual performances that we could take away for a DFS standpoint. So, starting with that New York side, Mac is going to be the highest priced player on their team, and he is the highest in any of these players. And to be honest, he's just not worth it at this point, in my opinion. When he was really popping off and putting up huge numbers earlier in the year. I said this in my video yesterday, but he was playing a little bit of a different role. Since the meta kind of changed in this game, he's been playing a different role, which he hasn't been able to put up the big numbers. Still a good player, don't get me wrong, but for DFS, I just don't think that his ceiling is as high as some of the other guys that you can get, and I think the price tag is a little bit too high. Other players on this New York team that I really like, has been a very solid player all year long. He still had a positive KD in yesterday's matches, but the two players that I really like are actually Zuma and Accuracy. I had Zuma as my MVP in one of my lineups that was able to cash, and that was a very good lineup there, as he put up 103 against the Minnesota Rocker in just 4 games. And Accuracy was another player that I had who put up 99 in those 4 games. So I really like those two players as well in this lineup. For this lineup that I'm building in this video, I don't think I'll have them in, but I really like those two players if you want to get some players from the New York Subliners. Now, for the Chicago Huntsman side of things, the highest priced player is Formal, and similar to Mac, Formal was really putting up the big numbers like a couple weeks before the regular season ended, but as it got closer to the end, he wasn't playing as well as he had been. You could see there he didn't even hit 100 in the past 4 matches, so I'm going to stay away from Formal. I want to see how he comes out, if he's got something to prove, because he is still a top AR in the game, but for me, I'm not going to have him in this lineup for Friday's matches. But the players that I do like on the Chicago side of things are going to be Envoy is one of them, who their submachine gun player, super aggressive. He usually leads the team in total engagements, and if he's winning those engagements, he's going to get you a ton of points. But he has a little bit of a tough matchup going against Zuma and Attach, but I do like him as a play. Like I said, I'm not going to have him in this particular lineup, but definitely I will have him in some other lineups that I build because I do think he's a great play. The one player I will have in this video, in this lineup, is going to be Arcides. And, contrary to Mac, he switched a role that he's actually been able to thrive in and play even better. These last 4 matches, he hasn't been able to put up those 100 points, but I'm thinking this series is going to go 4 or 5 games, as I do think both these matches for Friday's games will go. But I really do like Arcides. I think he's going to come out with a fire and just play very well. He along with Envoy, gets a ton of engagements. He actually had more engagements than Envoy did in their last event, and he was winning a ton of them, so he had that positive KD. I think he's a great play for this matchup. The third player that I like from Huntsman as a little bit of a wild card play will be his twin brother Pristini. And, his numbers, if you look at his game log, you're not going to be blown away by it. But I do think that he's a huge part of the Chicago Huntsman team. And when he's playing well, the Huntsmen are playing really well. And I think that he's a pretty good pick. I think he's going to be a very low-owned player that could pop off. I'm probably going to have some exposure to him in some of the other lineups that I built. So now we're going to move on to the next matchup. All right, so the next matchup we have is the Toronto Ultra versus the Florida Mutineers. Now, the Ultra played on Thursday, and they benefited a little bit from the disconnecting issues that the London Royal Ravens had, but that's not to take away from the performance that Toronto had. Toronto looked very good as a team. I think they're going to give Florida a very good run for their money. If you wanted to be a little contrary to a lot of the popular picks, I would even think about picking Ultra as your team in some of these, in some of your lineups. Definitely not the safest pick by any means, but them being the cheapest, a lot of people are going to stay away from them. And I do think Toronto looks great. They won the last regular season event, and I think that they might be able to steal one from the Florida Mutineers. So I do think that's a pretty interesting option. But for me, in this particular lineup, I'm not going to have that. Just talking about the players. So we'll start with the Toronto Ultra. And, like I said, the Ultra looked great on Thursday, and that was led by Cammy, who has just been on an absolute tear. You can see here huge numbers in his last 4. Always has been putting up 100 plus, and I'm gonna keep riding his hot streak. I'm definitely gonna have him in this lineup, just as a flex player. I definitely could see a lot of people having him as MVP. He was a very popular pick on Thursday as well, and he definitely has the reasons to be that MVP. Just he's a great player. And another player that I want from this Toronto side is going to be Methods, who, as I said in yesterday's video, Methods has been consistently one of the top ARs in Call of Duty for a very long time. And, he's just been super consistent as well with Cammy. And just them two both being great AR players has really helped the Ultra, kind of become more, I wouldn't say necessarily dominant yet, but they're getting to that level. And I think they could reach that form once again here against the Florida Mutineers. Another player that I'm going to mention for the Toronto team, well, actually, I'll mention both, but Bance and Kleenex are their 2 submachine gun players, and they bring the aggressiveness that the Ultra really need to, put them over the top, and both of them have been playing very good. My more favorite of the SMGs would be Kleenex, just because of the amount of engagements he gets, and he was winning a ton of them, just an absolute menace on the field. And in these just 4 games played yesterday on Thursday, he had 106 points. So if this series were to go 4 or 5, he can get that 100-point mark. So I do think that's an interesting pick. I will have some exposure to him in my other lineups. Now for the Florida Mutineers side of things, there's a lot of great players, as you guys probably know, on this team. Now, my favorite play is going to be Awakening, who is probably going to be a lot of people's favorite play for the MVP spot. Second most expensive player on the slate, and rightfully so. He's just been so consistent ever since he's come into the scene, in the pro scene, I should say. He had a little bit of that weird game there against the Dallas Empire, which was 3 games. Was all right in the London series in 5 games. I don't expect him to repeat that at all. I think he's going to be a lot better this week and has a lot to prove in the playoffs, because he has been getting a lot of hate just from the community, because of he's this rookie who's just kind of taking the scene by storm. But I do think he's got a lot to prove, and I'm definitely going to want to have him in my lineup. Now, the last player that's going to fit this lineup is going to be Farrow, who is one of the SMG players for this Florida team, and like so many other SMG players, just super aggressive, ton of engagements, and if he's winning these engagements, which he usually is, he's going to put up those big points. I think this is an interesting play for even an MVP spot, just because he's always getting a ton of engagements, and when he's winning them, he's going to have such a good KD, and he's going to be able to put up a huge number for you in this situation here. So the other player that I will mention, though, for this Florida side is Skies, because he's just so talented. He's their main AR on this team, and he plays a little bit slower pace, so he's not getting the amount of kills that like an Awakening would get in that AR role, but he always has a great KD. You can see he's usually over 100 points. That weird game against the Dallas Empire where they lost in 3, so no points there, but I think Skies is definitely an interesting play. Like I've said about so many other players, I will have exposure to them in other lineups. So for the last team spot, we could spend up to the Florida Mutineers, but like I said, I'm a little hesitant to go with the Florida Mutineers just because I really liked how Toronto was looking on Thursday, and I think that they're going to give Florida a good run. So for this lineup, I'm going to have the Huntsmen as my team. The last time they played New York, they did lose in 5 games, but I think that the Huntsmen are going to turn it around, and I really think they're going to show a lot of people that they're one of these top teams in the league, and that they're trying to win this whole thing, trying to win the whole champs. So, this is the lineup that I'm going to go with in this video. I thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are new, subscribe, comment any feedback. My Twitter's at the top if you want to tweet me anything about DFS slates, any questions like that. And as always, I'll have my PayPal link in the comments. Feel free to donate. Like I always say, I do not expect it, but it is very much appreciated, as I do take a lot of time to make these videos and to do the research. So I thank you guys so much for watching. Let's go win some money, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.